So, whenever we talk about leading, I get this question often about women in ministry, women leading in ministry. Um, if you know the most basic things about Foursquare, you will know that Foursquare was founded by a woman. So, what do we believe about women in ministry? Well, we believe what the Bible teaches about women in ministry. The, the Bible teaches that women can lead. And there are people that say, well, what about when Paul said, yeah, there's two verses. One of them says women should be silent in the church and women should be submitted. I do not permit a woman to one of the verses says, I do not permit a woman to have authority over men. I'm going to get to that in a minute, or not to exercise authority over a man. However, Paul, the guy that wrote those two verses that people like to cite, he had women in positions of leadership. He had women in pastoral, shepherding positions of leadership. So, how could he do that and still say those things? Well, you have to look at context. Okay, so a lot of the ways that the Greek word for man and the Greek word for husband is the exact identical word. It is no different. So where the verse is, I do not permit a woman to have to exercise authority over a man, very easily should have been, in my opinion, I do not permit a woman or a wife to exercise authority over her husband. Well, now it makes sense. That's right. That makes sense with the context of the entire rest of the Bible, because we look at context in order to I can give you a really simple, it's a little bit crude, but I can give you a really simple way to understand this. In English, we have words that you have to use the context to be able to tell what that means. If I say two, what am I talking about? Two, you don't have any context, you don't know. If I say I'm going to the kitchen, well, that means it's a destination. I'm traveling. So if I say I have two pieces of information here, well, that's a number. If I say I agree too, that means I also agree. So the word to means a bunch of different things. It's the difference in, you have to use context to be able to figure it out. It's the difference in butt dial and booty call. Huge difference there, right? So, see, now you're going to remember. That's what context means. You have to use context to be able to understand what things mean. So when we look at context, not just a specific verse, because maybe I'm taking this verse out of context, or maybe the people that translated it into English, maybe they didn't do a great job at this. So what is the context of in the context of the entire Bible, in the context of the New Testament? There are women in leadership positions. There are women shepherds. There are women prophetess. There are women doing every role in the church. So there are women in leadership. I can tell you this. It takes a supernaturally special type of woman to lead in the church, to pastor in the church, to shepherd in the church. This is why. A woman who is qualified to lead in the church is well submitted in her home to her husband, and she is leading in the church. I cannot imagine how difficult that would be. I have trouble leading well in my home and leading well in the church, because if you've met me, you know why. So to be submitted in your home and then come to the church and lead, it's got to be tough. I believe it's much, much more difficult for a woman to lead in the church than it is for a man. It's just a fact of life. But we do believe that God has women in leadership positions. I do believe that is completely and totally biblical. That they are not disqualified. I just read a verse from Galatians. Whenever we're talking, there is no Jew nor Greek, no male nor female, and that is because God calls all of them. When you look at the positions that Paul's talking about, there are no you know how some, like in Spanish, the A at the end of a word generally means it's feminine, and the O usually in the Greek it's similar. And when he's talking about the positions in church, there are none of those identifiers. It's not male or female. It is just a position. So it's very